Hey, welcome back to 65 Drums. My name's Justin. So today's video is going to be a little bit different than usual on the channel. This is a long-form podcast-style discussion about the electronic drum industry. And in the second part of the video, we're going to be doing a tour of EdrumCenter, so if you're interested, stay till the end. All right, hope you guys enjoy. Hey guys, I'm Justin with 65 Drums, and today I'm
Eric from EdrumCenter. I'm the owner.
I'm Andy from EdrumCenter. I'm not the owner.
You're the player.
That's right.
So I was visiting here because they actually got the Roland VAD 706 drum set. They've also got a bunch of other kits. We'll be doing a tour later. Just talk about what's been happening in the industry. I thought that'd make for an interesting video. And talk about what it's been like to sell electronic drums during COVID. And the first topic was the launch of the 706 and the T50X and the new digital hi-hats, which people have been really anticipating for a long time.
Yeah.
What's that been like?
Since the 50 came out, basically. We actually knew about it a little bit ahead of time, and it was very hard not to say anything because it seemed to always come up like all the time. It was like,
Right.
We were allowed to, I think, post them on our site at like 8 p.m. the day they came out.
Yeah.
And I worked a little bit late that night and sent a newsletter out to all our customers, and that night we'd already sold quite a few hi-hats specifically. But a lot of interest in this kit, the VAD 706, right away as well. Those have been doing really good. The only problem is getting them. You know, they were supposed to hit in June, then they said July, and now they're saying, we actually have shipped some of the TD50K and K2s already.
Yeah.
But our first shipment of these is actually coming in next week.
This is the first Roland drum set that has lots of colors. Is red being really popular, or is just whatever they can get because the supply is that low?
So far, ebony, this kit here, is the most popular. Next most popular is natural. And then it seems to be cherry. And I don't think we've sold a white kit yet, which actually surprises me because...
You thought it'd be a little more popular.
Yeah, I thought like maybe House of Worship would really love a white kit. But, you know, maybe that's just going to happen later because they're not shipping those even until October.
Oh, really? What's the interest been like between the VAD line and like the TD50 line? Because it's the KV2 and the K2 now that are kind of competing with the 706, and they're slightly cheaper, right?
It seems to be better than I expected. Like, so 50 KV2 is actually holding its own quite well.
Wow.
With we've sold more VAD kits overall. It's kind of mixed between the finishes. We've sold probably more ebony kits, but a close second is a TD50 KV2. And the 50K2 is right behind that. So they're doing well. People are starting to realize that the four coolest things on the kit you get with the 50KV2 and K2, and you save. Right. Don't get me wrong, I love these. They're great. They're fantastic looking and everything. And I like the bigger sizes, but we have some customers that are in studios that, you know, they actually don't mind a smaller footprint.
So one thing that I've been wondering about is what it was like to be a seller of electronic drums during COVID. Because my first thought would be that everyone stops buying electronic drums. But it seems like from what I've heard from you, it might have been a lot different than that. So what's it been like?
Yeah, it was actually more of a problem getting supply than there was with demand because it seemed like pro musicians like you, all your gigs got canceled.
All of them.
And so you still wanted to play, and a lot of guys still want to play. So you can't really, if you live in an apartment, practice on an acoustic kit all the time. So I think that helped a little bit.
I got a lot of practicing done on my electronic
As
kit.
did I.
Let's say there was a COVID kit of choice that people were buying a lot in 2020. What was like the top three kits that were just being shipped out a lot?
Well, as you know, the VAD 506 and T27KV were introduced January, right before everything. You know, we were both at NAMM, saw them. They didn't really start shipping until May.
There was a delay.
Yeah, you know, there usually is a little bit of a delay, but I think there's a longer delay because of COVID and all the uncertainty. Chinese factories were shutting down, and the ports are all in California on the West Coast for the most part, and they were all at home. Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of a delay, but those were definitely VAD 506, T27KV from Roland. Unfortunately, we'll never know what like ATV would have done. We couldn't get them basically from January of 2020 on. Gava, we didn't really start getting their kits until December of last year. EF Note, January of this year. So really last year it was a Roland show for the most part by default.
There was this weird delay where at the early, like maybe late 2019 and early 2020, everybody announced everything and no one actually could deliver yet. Yeah. And then COVID happened at the same time, so there was a shipping mess that happened around that time, and then a part shortage. But like sales were not below 2019, were they?
No.
I heard
I've heard industry wide, most people were actually up a little bit. I've heard guitar sales have just been through the roof. I think going back to professional musicians were definitely.
I spent way more money than I should have without a job, for sure.
and there was a lot of cool releases. You'd think there'd be less announcements, but we just kept seeing more and more drums.
Yeah. And this year's been much of the same. There's a bunch of new stuff that's coming out.
So one thing I was wondering about is that with EdrumCenter, you're kind of like local music stores where you get a lot of trade-ins.
Mm-hmm. A lot of 17 modules lately. People are trading that have gotten like 17 kits or maybe just got a 17 module a couple years ago are moving up to this 27.
Okay.
In some cases, they're moving up to the 50X, but more often the 27.
What's the main reason that they give you guys on the phone?
Yeah, getting the digital snare and ride. The ride symbol on the 17 kits is fairly small. It's only a 13.
Yeah.
It's not only bigger on the digital, but it just plays, it's way more responsive
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. So
They also introduced an upgrade pack where you got the digital ride, the digital snare, and a T27. So that sort of lowered the barrier of entry.
well, we did that.
Oh, that was you?
That's not a Roland thing. Yeah.
Okay, I thought Roland, that's awesome though. I
Yeah.
thought that was nice because that was way easier to stomach price-wise
Yeah.
versus a TD50 upgrade pack, which was like,
For sure.
what was that, 3,500 or something?
Yeah, at the time it was 3,500, and we did the 27 upgrade pack because that was always a good seller for us. The 50 upgrade pack was for people that had 20s or 30s back in the day. So it just made sense to make that a package, and it's been one of our best sellers since we did it last January.
I'm assuming you also get like Alesis owners that want to upgrade parts of their kit sometimes.
For sure.
What's like the top upgrade you see Alesis owners
Probably the
trading for?
hi-hat.
Better hi-hat?
You get people that stick with the strike module will for sure get a VH11, VH10. Seems like we've sold tons of those to Alesis users for sure. I think that's maybe the weakest part of their kit is the hi-hat. It seems like with ride cymbals, maybe more recently because the CY16R, the new thin one, seems to be a good ride for people like that. Before that, it was ATV.
And at first, they were acting like the CY16 wasn't really going to be sold separate, at least when I talked to them at the booth. But now it's come out, it seems to be very popular as an upgrade.
Yes. Yeah, we're selling way more of those than the 14s, for sure. It works great with other modules as well that are Roland compatible. So Alesis Strike, the ATV modules, which of course ATVs have been making larger cymbals for a few years now.
We should also mention that you just became the United States distributor for ATV, right?
Yeah, in April.
That was a
announced.
pretty big move for you guys.
Well, I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, 2020, it could have been a little easier if we'd had ATV that whole time.
Because they went out of business, and it was a ATV USA.
Yeah, the U.S. distributor.
And I knew the guys that worked there, and it was really sad to see that arm of ATV temporarily go out.
Yeah, they were great guys. They did a great job. It was unfortunate that they had to close. We just kept in touch with one guy in particular at ATV that was doing global support, because every now and again we'd have a customer needing an odd and end, and I would just be like, hey, and by the way, when are we going to get ATV back in the U.S.? I just kind of would keep asking. Early this year, they was like, management should be in touch with you soon about something. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And they just sent a letter. It's like, hey, we want you guys to be the new distributor. I'm like, great, we're getting ATV back. I've been asking about that for a year, so let's go.
How important is the United States in global e-drum sales for companies like Roland and ATV?
I'm not 100% sure about all those exact numbers, but the feeling I get is that the United States is still obviously a huge market for everybody. I don't think it's as dominant as, say, it was maybe 10 years ago. I think Europe has come a long way. It's actually double the population of the United States. It's 800 million. I think U.S. is a little over 300 million. Obviously, Asia is like off the charts. There's still a lot of growth there in countries like India and China. As far as I can tell, Japan is a different market for sure. From what I've been talking about just a little bit with the ATV guys, they do really well in Japan. They do well with the smaller kits, I think there.
That makes a lot of sense because all the Japanese companies, they always seem to make a lot of smaller pad drum sets, and that's what they they usually aim for, they're thinking first about their target audience where they live. And so it makes sense that the smaller kids work more for that area.
Yeah, I think part of it is like in Tokyo or something, just like New York City, the apartments are tiny.
Yeah, because you can't. It's so expensive there.
Yeah,
it's not a very big place either.
Yeah,
it's like
120 million people
dense.
in the size of like California. I definitely think the U.S. market is for sure important to them. ATV is very excited to get back into the U.S. I think COVID had made it so it took a little longer than maybe it should have, but we're getting our first shipment in hopefully in early August.
So I know you've been working on creating a lot of custom kits for EdrumCenter on the new TD50X module.
Yeah.
The TD50X has a lot more sounds inside of it. And that was something a lot of people are asking for. What's your process when you're working on these kits? Are you trying to emulate stuff from songs, or are you just dreaming up what you like?
Yeah, like today I in my head I was thinking, maybe I could do like an old vintage Motown-y kit. So I started bringing up like Motown songs and trying to listen to the snare and how it sounded. And I found one that was kind of the same pitch, but I noticed like they had a lot of reverb in it. So I would get this vintagey kind of sound that they had on there. All the toms were kind of tuned real high, so I got that kind of jazzy toms. And
the ride sounded just like it.
Yeah. I was trying to match all the tones, and then listen to the reverb in that, and I added a lot of those. I'm just using that as an example,
right?
But I mean, soaked with room sound. You know, it's just so reverby.
It is not dry.
No. Then I did some other ones. I think the first one we did was kind of that Phil Collinsy sound, that gated reverb sound. It's super fun to play on. It's like the and everything's just out. I would have something in mind. Sometimes it would just be going through the TD50 and just, oh, that's a cool sound, and what can I build with that? And I would build it from the ground up. But some of the kits that I've worked on have definitely I've had something in mind, and then I'm trying to chase. And I would sit there with Spotify and listen to the song and then go back. I did like a Steve Gadd type kit, listening to 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, and just listen to the kick drum going back.
Are you a layering guy? Some people, they're like, I only want to work with the original sound, because sometimes if you don't know what you're doing when you're layering, it can sound cluttered and weird if they don't mesh right. Do you like layering a lot?
Sometimes. Like I've done that, especially with the thinner sounds, like those super Simmonsy tom sounds.
Yeah.
Boo, boo, boo. I like putting something behind it. It gives it a little bit more girth, to where it almost.
It doesn't have to be loud.
No, if I put like a acoustic tom behind like that kind of sound, or the 808 sound or something like that, and I'll just back it off a little bit.
Right.
And I really like, all the compression that you can put on it. And I just recently unlocked, because, we were talking about this, like trying to get in here and like learn how to use this
It's a complicated module.
Yeah. Once you get your head around it, it's not too bad. But I just got into the effects unit to where I was like messing with the effects, and like you can have 3 different effects and put, running at the same time, but like put just the toms on. Yeah, I mean, you can have like three effects going, and then you can drag the snare onto one of those effects and drag the bass onto another effect, or you can just like leave it alone.
And then the master, EQ, and compression to kind of glue it all together.
Yeah.
Attack and release times also really change the sound too. And I've been messing around with that a little bit in there. It's weird how modules keep giving you more and more controls, and on the one hand, it's a really good thing. On the other hand, though, almost it can be overwhelming.
You can get optionitis.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know when to stop.
I was working on a kit last night, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I came back this morning, and all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I can do this and this. And coming back to it the next day somehow unlocks it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes your ears just get blown out.
This is amazing.
At 3 a.m. It sounds amazing.
Thinking?
So the last thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that you have your own brand of electronic drums called Hawk Drums. And I played some of the early versions that you had like a year and a half ago last time I was here. You've been like really fine-tuning the internal triggers. You've changed the way the internals are. So talk a little bit about how that brand got started and some of the progress you've been making with it.
We had a customer with a TD25 module, and at the time, I think Roland had already come out with the 50 and the digital snare, but he didn't want to upgrade to that, and he just wanted a 14-inch snare that worked with his 25 that supported positional sensing. I have this customer made some triggers, stealth drums, I'll get that from him, and we'll see what we can put together for you. We made that snare. It actually turned out really nice. It worked really well. Sent it to him. From there, we started essentially converting kits for people. Some of the first kits I converted were kits that people brought by, like old, just kind of, somebody had bought a shell pack and like spray painted it blue or something.
Wow.
So it was kind of like, wasn't really worth a whole lot
Spray
more.
paint always seems like a good idea.
Yeah, and he's
never
like,
is.
yeah, just, I'm just looking for
A practice.
a kit to play live, but I want the bigger shell look.
Oh, yeah.
So, see what you can do. And we did that for him. That turned out really nice.
It's almost like recycling in a way. Because a lot of these drums would end up at a Goodwill or in the trash or something. You can make them really good for certain situations.
Unfortunately, the stealth drum thing, early last year.
Unfortunately, he passed away.
He passed away. It was very sad.
He was big in the community.
Yeah. So when that happened, we were kind of back to the drawing board as far as what triggers we're going to use. So started looking at some of the off the shelf stuff, kind of expensive. What can we do to lower the price of these, but also keep them quality and make them durable so they're not going to break after a few months. We don't make something chintzy that would fall apart and then have the customer come back.
How was the? I can't remember that. How'd you come up with that idea? I remember we had John in here working on some stuff for.
Yeah, we have a repair guy. He's essentially electrical engineer. We had him come in here, and this was all kind of during COVID lockdown, so it was very hard for a while to get in the same room.
Right.
So we had to wait for that, and then I think there was a parts shortage or something for just like the piezo's or something, or foam cones or something.
Which are usually like you can get a bag of them for like $5.
Yeah. It just was hard.
And all of a sudden you can't get them.
Mesh heads for a while where certain sizes were hard to get. We still are mostly using Roland heads. I believe 14-inch heads last year were just like, they're backward 6 months.
The power ply ones.
Yeah. So I think it was around last July, it all kind of finally came together where we had a really good working prototype for every drum, snare, toms, and kick. I was really pretty happy with the product and the price that we were able to offer them for. And the durability. We build them, and then he plays on them for a couple, 2-3 days solid. Tries to break them. After we got this new design, really hasn't been an issue.
Yeah, usually I'll sit down and it's very rare. Sometimes Aubrey has to make a small adjustment because before it was a lot of double triggering. I'd hit it, then
Some of our early design,
then you hear a da da, and you're, and you sit there and just hit it and just all over the place. And sometimes it would have these problems. It seems like that happens less and less and less.
Well, we switched to a better, stiffer reinforcement.
And you're using bar triggers now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That seemed to change
brackets.
everything. As far as me going in there and breaking the stuff, it just wouldn't happen.
You ran into some issues early on with the kick drum trigger design. Talk about how you worked over making it as accurate as possible, avoiding double triggering and stuff.
Well, we're using a full, Roland mesh head right now for the batter side, and just that head on a 20 or 22-inch kick drum can be kind of bouncy.
Yeah.
With nothing in the center. We were kind of paying attention to what some of the other people were doing, and they were putting stuff behind the head.
Right.
And so we figured out a way to do that. And once we did that, that really cut down on the bounciness and made them feel a lot better. We kind of used your feedback a lot.
You're a beta tester.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't like sometimes with it's very bouncy and almost like the way I play sometimes. I don't bury the beater necessarily, but sometimes I just couldn't help but get because it was so bouncy.
Yeah. That's the thing about mesh on a 22 or a 20-inch.
Mm-hmm.
Even with 3-ply, you're still going to get some bounce.
We're probably selling more snares than we do anything else. The snares seem to be a real big hit. The kind of go-to shells and lugs we were getting are now backordered till January of next year.
So you're even being hit on the raw material side of things, not even finished drums.
Yeah, so we're kind of back to the drawing board, come up with another shell. That's kind of fun. Come up with something new and maybe have some, maybe we're going to make the snare for a few months and, then we'll move on to something else. And the main thing we doing going forward is just offering something that other people don't necessarily offer, like a different color.
So we're going to be doing a part 2 where we do a walk around to the store. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for allowing me to stop by and film all kinds of stuff. It's been really fun.
Yeah, appreciate it. So this is the Roland TD 07KV. Over here we've got just some accessory type stuff. Over here we've just got some t-shirts, sticks, catalogs, headphones, stuff like that. In here is the workshop. We do repairs in here, all the Hawk stuff, building all the Hawk drums.
So you got like old modules. There are a couple of ATV modules right there.
Yeah, those are parts modules. In case somebody needs like some repairs done on an ATV module, we got those. A lot of spare parts. Try and keep like a lot of spare parts just in case.
A lot of Roland heads over there.
Yeah, it's good to have like there's an old like TD20 board.
Let's see what the inside of those. So that's what they look like, huh?
That's some of the boards from the 20. Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
That's for the faders.
I've never taken apart a TD20 or even my TD30, thankfully.
Hopefully you don't have to. Luckily they don't fail too often.
So you've got a lot of mesh heads here. What's the story behind all this?
Oh yeah, those are actually Aquarian practice heads. They had like leftover. We were kind of hoping we could use those for batter heads, but we tested them and they're just not thick enough. They don't have enough tension. So our plan is just to use them for bottom heads.
Okay.
Going forward.
Nice.
Or maybe if somebody wants just like some silent heads to practice on, they'd probably work fine for that too.
You also have a bunch of extra things over here. Like I see parts of, what is that, a TD20?
There's some old Roland pads that got traded in.
Got an Elisa Strike, a TD20.
My plan, as of a few months ago, is maybe to like try and keep all the old Roland modules that have ever come out, and we already had a 20.
That way you can test anything when someone has a question.
Yeah, and just it's cool to have some of the old stuff, kind of like a museum kind of thing.
Right.
That's my idea.
So let's start over here. You got the big hot new kit of the year.
Yeah.
You're one of the only stores I know of that has it. There's only a handful of stores that got it yet.
Yeah, this is actually a kit that we got from Roland to do, playing on, testing, videos, and stuff like that. It's been great to have because, as we discussed, it's kind of hard to tell how cool that finish is from pictures.
Yeah.
This is where we do a lot of the videos, this particular setup. So
Right.
this will probably stay here for a little while.
And you've also got, like, you're working on this kit. This is one of the Hawk kits that you're converting.
That's a kit that still needs to be, triggers still need to be installed into it. We'll probably finish that up in the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
And you also got, just like any good drum shop, you've got tons of loose odds and ends and just tons of random pads back there. And this is one of the people that works here. He's converting that. That was his kit from when he was a kid. And
I think it's his first kit, yeah.
Yeah, he's turning it into an electronic kit sometime this year that he's excited about.
Yeah. Might put some lights in there too or something.
This is room 1. Now we're moving on to the other room that has just all the other kits inside of it.
Yeah, this is the main showroom. And
so this one right here is kind of like a hodgepodge of a lot of stuff, like custom kick drum, a Hawk snare, and then a Pearl Mimic.
Pearl Mimic, some PDX 100s, used VH13 that just got traded in, some lightly used Roland cymbals. Yeah. Just kind of like showing off that the Mimic Pro works with all kinds of different stuff.
Right.
And this is just an odd rack we had left over from a custom kit we built. So
it kind of looks like a TD50K rack, maybe.
It is. They changed the name of that rack from they used to call it the MDS50K, and now they call it the MDS Grand.
But it's the same thing?
Basically.
Didn't they raise it to accommodate taller kick drums, like the front bar?
I think that could be possible, but I think partially is the cymbal mounts are a little different. Like the ball mount here.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a little bit different. And
I know the tops are different too.
Yeah, these are different. They also used to string the cables through the rack, like from the factory, and now they're just in the box.
I really miss the metallic VH13. I know it wears away eventually, and that's why they stopped, but
I still think it was a cool finish.
It really looks cool. And then over here you have like a really, really expanded VAD 506.
Yeah, it's an extra 12 over here. So it's 10, 12, 12, 14, 14. And it's got an ATV crash and an ATV chine over here.
That's 17 and 16.
VH13 as opposed to the VH10.
Yeah, that's the same hi-hat, just it's matte black. And then you got the digital ride right here, digital snare,
Yeah,
and TD27. Yeah, it's just a big VAD 506.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of at the 2020 NAMM, they had a giant expanded VAD.
In fact, we had a double kick version of this for a while.
The only downside is that none of the stock kits are set up for a configuration like this, so you do have to manually go in, because that bottom floor tom, it ends up with a stock like tambourine sound or something like that, so you have to adjust things.
You put in, by default, some of them are cymbals and some of them are toms.
Right.
But in this particular one, I think that the default input was a cymbal, so we had to go through and manually just kind of change it to a floor tom.
Right. If you split zones, you could even expand it slightly more than this too.
Sure. Yeah.
Over here, we've got the Geva C5. I'm currently reviewing the L6 right now, which has a different finish. But it was interesting to try this one out, and I kind of like the carbon finish.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of that finish.
And you've got like a hodgepodge of pads over here for like testing or something.
There's just some used pads. That kit seems to change week by week. I think that kit's been like 10 different things in this year alone, at least.
Do people really like the Roland amps, or what's sales been like for those?
They've actually been kind of hard to get.
Really?
Like this past 12 to 18 months, I believe we finally have a couple of PM100, PM200s available now, but it hasn't been the case. Other powered speakers that we could have substituted, they've also been hard to get.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, amplification's been actually tougher than it's ever been before for some reason.
That's funny because I think they came out in 2018, right?
Yeah, it's not a new product at all. It's just been
Just everything's hard to get right now.
Yeah.
And then the final kit in drum room number 2 is this mirror finish Hawk kit right here. So you took these shells, you converted them, and you put your own custom triggers in it. You've got the Roland CY16R, I think, right there.
Yeah.
A couple CY12s, and then VH10 or 11.
I believe that's an 11.
And then with a TD17 module, you've got the Roland power plies, which is basically a branding move by Roland. The power ply is the same as the regular Roland heads. It's just that they've rebranded it for people that want to convert acoustic to electronic, I think.
The reason why we chose the Roland heads is because I've been selling Roland since the 90s, and their heads just seem to last a really long time.
Yeah.
And it's a nice thickness, and because Roland has such a, there's thousands of modules out there, it's best to probably design your stuff to work with their modules.
Right.
But by default, when you design for their modules, you're already making it work. Or also making it work with Mimic Pro, Strike Pro.
There's like an ecosystem thing.
Yeah. So the only things these won't work with is Yamaha, and I have considered making some triggers that will work with Yamaha as well.
Because their wiring and just everything is just a hair different.
Yeah.
Although their new modules, they are building the DTX Pro modules to work with mesh, so compatibility might be changing in the next year or two. I don't know.
Yeah, that's something. We do have a DTX Pro, and we did test the DTX Pro with our stuff, and it just wasn't quite right.
Oh, gotcha.
So we're gonna have to do something to slightly tweak it. It'd be nice if they all worked together, and that'd be fantastic. Making everything easier, but not quite there yet.
You also got a TD25 over there. You got a bunch of them in stock now.
Yeah, Roland actually found a bunch of these in one of their warehouses, and they're brand new. Even though it's an older, the 27 technically replaced this. This is still a really cool module. I always loved the 25, and
so you got like another 20 of them in stock.
Yeah,
or something
we've got
like
quite a few right now, and we're doing for $499, which is pretty much the best module you can buy for $499. I think, new or used right now.
So next up, we got the warehouse section where you store all the pads before they go out.
Let's turn the light on so you can actually see. Hold on a second.
I'm feeling that Tennessee heat. Sometimes you'll just get a bunch of pallets at a time that somehow you got to make room in here for.
Yeah, when we first got our VAD 506 shipment last year, it was a long semi full of 506s and 503s.
Which you desperately needed.
Yes, and I believe it was like right here. We set up a wall of them, and actually, if you look at our Instagram, I think the picture's still there. Just me sitting in front of this whole wall of Roland stuff.
So you sort of like sort them by categories. It looks like you got a bunch of cymbals here from Roland. You got some Gava ones over here. You got some Yamaha kick drums, more Gava cymbals down there.
Yeah, Aubrey's not here. He already had to leave for the day, but he's the warehouse manager, shipping manager, so I try to do my best not to like come in here and mess up his system, basically.
Then over here we got a bunch of TD50, TD25 stuff, TD25K down there. And then you got a whole bunch of the PDX 100s, right?
Yeah, we got a bunch of PDX 100s, along with they're brand new, along with that new old stock we got from Roland.
And then the DTX 3X stuff. I keep forgetting how to say the names, the naming scheme of Yamaha's new electronic drums. But
DTX Pro kits.
The Pro kits, yeah, that's how you would say them. Hardware-wise, what are you getting a lot of right now?
We're kind of low on hardware right now because hardware wasn't really a problem last year and most of this year, but for some reason recently, drum hardware has become harder to keep in. We keep most of that over here. We sell, DW, Pearl, Tama, PDP, which is part of DW, Yamaha, and we try and keep in like all the stuff that a customer would need. So say like, they bought a VAD 503 kit and they needed a kick pedal hi-hat stand. We try and keep all that stuff, ready to go. So when we ship it out, they have everything they need.
What's the one pedal you probably sell the most of?
Right now it's this PDP double, the direct drive double. They're around $200, a little over $200, and it's a really good deal for a direct drive.
Isn't that kind of new? Because I've never actually noticed it at stores before.
I think last year is the first year it came out, 2020, and we got them in just because they were kind of inexpensive, and we opened one up and played it, and I was like, wow, I really like this pedal, and I have a trick pedal at home, and Andy has DW9000, he has all kinds of stuff, and he bought one too because he just liked the way it felt. Just in about a month, we're getting our first ATV shipment, which is a container load. And
yeah, because you just became the dealer in the United States for them.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where we're going to put all that, honestly.
Well, it's better to have them than not have them.
Yeah, we definitely missed ATV this last year. So.
And you even got some F-Note stuff over here, it looks like.
Yeah, we're a little low on. We usually have more than that, but we're going to go over to NAMM tomorrow.
All right, well, I'm about to lose battery here, so thanks for the tour. Check out EdrumCenter if you're in Tennessee, because they're a great place to stop by.
Yeah, we ship all across the country as well.
Hey, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. I really, really appreciate it. Huge shout out to Bentley Labs for recently supporting 65 Drums on Patreon.com. Patreon members help support the channel, keep it going, and enable me to do interesting, unique videos like this one that you just saw. Have an amazing day, guys. See you all in a few.